special intensive revision of electoral rolls by Election Commission of India in Bihar. So first of all, electoral rolls. What is it? It is a list of voters. Now this electoral roll has to undergo revision. It is a normal exercise, and electoral rolls generally undergo revision. There are three types of revision. The one which is happening now is special intensive revision. We'll also look into other two types of revisions. What are they? How it is conducted? But yes, ECI, Election Commission of India, has initiated SIR, that is Special Intensive Revision of Electoral Rolls in Bihar, commencing June 2025. Now Election Commission of India has to do such kind of revision pan-India. All across the country it has to do, but it has started from Bihar. So the logic given by Election Commission of India is that there are elections in Bihar, so these elections should be conducted with revised electoral rolls. That is why we have started in Bihar. But the time is very less. That is one concern. So let us see other issues related with this particular exercise. But yes, before that, what is special intensive revision? It is a hybrid approach. Field verification means door-to-door visits are done by the officials of Election Commission of India. And actually, to understand this, we should first understand the types of revision, then I'll come back to this. There are three types of roll revisions undertaken by Election Commission of India. First is intensive revision. The one which is being undertaken is special intensive revision. Okay, so don't get confused. Special intensive revision is different than intensive revision. Intensive revision is complete overhaul of the electoral rolls. The electoral rolls, the existing electoral rolls are scrapped and they are built from scratch. Comprehensive overhaul, house to house visits are done, fresh list prepared from scratch. Door to door visits, this person stays here, how many people stay here, how many are above 18, how many people are of unsound mind, because anyone who is above 18 and of unsound mind is not allowed to vote. Only people above 18 and of sound mind are allowed to vote. Summary revision, routine annual update. Second type of revision is summary revision. It is a routine annual update. Now in this what happens? Door-to-door survey is not there. Public draft published. People file for corrections or additions. No field visits are done. So draft is published by Election Commission of India and people assess their details are there or not, and if their details are there, they are correct or not. These kind of things are there. This annually happens. The third is special revision. It addresses legal, political or administrative gaps. Can use intensive or summary methods or both. So the current one is special intensive revision. Special intensive revision. Hybrid approach means door-to-door surveys will also be there and some summary revision components will also be there in this. Special intensive survey, it is a hybrid approach that combines door-to-door visits, characteristic of an intensive revision, with the use of existing roles and some summary features like pre-filled forms. So some summary features are also there, some door-to-door surveys are also there. That is why hybrid approach. The middle path of intensive and summary approach. Legal basis of doing such thing by Election Commission of India is Section 21(3) of the Representation of People's Act 1950. Friends, the Representation of People's Act 1950 is there are two types of Representation of People's Act. One is Representation of People's Act 1950. Another is Representation of People's Act 1951. Okay, so this we are talking about 1950 Act, and both these acts are part of your syllabus. Now, according to the Section 21(3) of Representation of People's Act 1950, Election Commission of India is empowered to revise the electoral rolls in such manner as it thinks fit. जैसा उसको ठीक लगे उस तरीके से वो रोल्स को रिवाइज कर सकता है. This is what this statement means. So there is, legal basis or legal backing behind Election Commission of India's actions. Now, why special intensive revision happening now and why Bihar first? The reasons given by Election Commission of India: massive changes in electoral rolls since 2003. 2002 was the last time when such kind of revisions happened. And since then, massive changes have happened in the electoral rolls. Bihar has not undergone an intensive revision over 20 years. This has led to a significant accumulation of new voters, and many deceased or migrated voters have not been removed from the list. And many of these migrated voters have registered themselves as voters to the new place where they have migrated and settled. So there is duplication also. So Election Commission of India wants to look into that. Demographic shifts have happened. Rapid urbanization and migration for work and education have led to discrepancies and duplicate entries, as individuals often enroll at new addresses without deleting the older entries. This is what I just explained to you. Then political complaints. There are allegations from many political parties. They have amplified the demand for a comprehensive cleanup of electoral rolls, so that they actually, get to know that who are the voters whom we have to target, like this. Then administrative readiness before state elections. With Bihar Assembly polls approaching, the Election Commission of India aims to ensure that only eligible citizens are included in the voter list to facilitate free and fair elections. So all these are the reasons, given by Election Commission of India, that why SIR is happening now and why Bihar first. Now, what is different and controversial this time? This needs to be understood with respect to this particular exercise happening in Bihar. There is a new requirement. So even existing voters who were enrolled after 2003 are now required to provide documentary proof. Now the onus of providing the proof is on the people. And what kind of document they want? They want birth certificate. They were not taking Aadhaar card, voter ID card, ration card. These are the most common proofs of identity people are having nowadays. Aadhaar being the most popular. But Election Commission of India was not accepting Aadhaar initially. And if you are not able to give the proofs, your voting rights are taken away. You are disenfranchised. That was the concern. Because the onus of proving that you are a resident and a citizen who is having that eligibility to vote is on you. And how will you prove it? Through documents. Which documents? The documents which Election Commission of India is demanding. They are not demanding Aadhaar, voter ID card or ration card. They are demanding birth certificates, and most of the people do not have birth certificates. Even I don't know if I have a birth certificate or not. So our generation of our fathers, grandfathers, definitely they will not be possessing birth certificates, and then they will be disenfranchised. So the Shukar Supreme Court intervened, and Supreme Court said that Aadhaar should be considered as a proof of identity, which is the most commonly possessed proof of identity nowadays. Then now, Election Commission of India has permitted Aadhaar card, voter ID card and ration card. So the requirement was to provide documentary proof of date of birth and place of birth. Place of birth, so this is there in birth certificate only. These are used to verify citizenship. Documents like Aadhaar and voter ID initially not accepted, but later on, after the intervention of Supreme Court, they were accepted. This initial exclusion caused significant confusion and panic, particularly among rural and migrant communities. Supreme Court later advised the ECI to consider accepting Aadhaar, ration cards and voter IDs. So chalo, this particular issue was tackled, but the criticism of this particular exercise process has drawn sharp criticism for potentially disenfranchising lakhs of voters, especially poor people without formal documents. Poor people, though definitely many poor people might not be having Aadhaar also. Migrant workers, women and the elderly who may lack birth records. Core criticism is reversal of the burden of proof. Earlier the burden of proof was with the Election Commission of India. Now the burden of proof is with the people, where citizens must now proactively prove their eligibility rather than the state proving ineligibility. So, in a way, if you see this, the state means the Election Commission of India. Earlier, what was the scenario? That had to prove ineligibility. But now the onus of proving eligibility is on the citizens. If the citizens fail to prove eligibility, vote will not be given. Voting rights will not be given to them. So, this is what is concerning. Now, what is Supreme Court's view? Supreme Court did not stop the SIR. Expressed significant concerns. ये जरूर किया. Like it urged ECI to make documentation requirements more practical and inclusive. That is why they suggested acceptance of Aadhaar, voter ID and ration cards as proof of identity. Expressed concerns about potential for widespread voter exclusion due to stringent requirement and a truncated timeline. Truncated timeline means they have a very stiff timeline and they have to meet the targets. Highlighted that the purpose of the SIR is identity verification, not citizenship determination. You have to identify. You don't have to determine the citizenship as per this exercise. So don't go for determining citizenship, go for, identity proofs. And questioned the exclusion of widely held identity proofs like Aadhaar. Listed the judicial review of the entire process for further hearing, and by 28th of July, a hearing will be there. So when this happens on 28th of July, that is next coming Monday, then after this the Monday is 28th of July. Please be watchful of what the Supreme Court says about this particular exercise. This will be in newspapers. Okay. This, I think, nowadays is in newspapers. People are criticizing, people are favoring it. All these things are happening. Then challenge to electoral roll reform in Bihar. Now, why did the Supreme Court intervene? Because there is some litigation filed in the Supreme Court. Litigation filed by an organization named Association for Democratic Reforms and others. Others include people like Yogendra Yadav, Mahua Moitra, Manoj Jha, and another organization, People's Union for Civil Liberties. So these people filed a petition versus Election Commission of India. The case was about SIR is arbitrary, unconstitutional and likely to disenfranchise lakhs of voters, especially the poor and marginalized. This is what these people are saying. Unconstitutional because it is violating certain fundamental rights like right to equality. The rich people might be having the documents, but the poor might not be having. And as a result, they are disenfranchised. That is something which is, uncalled for. That is something which is unconstitutional. So, this is basically the scenario. The respondent is Election Commission of India. Supreme Court of India is the court in which this case is going on. Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia and Justice Joy Mallya Bagchi are hearing this particular case. Case number is WPC 640-2025. No need to memorize. And next hearing is 28 July 2025. That is what I was saying, that you have to be, vigilant about it. Legal powers cited by Election Commission of India. Article 324. ECI controls and supervises the elections. Then Section 21. RPA 1950 allows ECI to prepare and revise electoral rolls. Article 326 of the Constitution, voting rights for all citizens aged 18 plus. All means there are exceptions like person should not be of unsound mind. And section 16(3) of 16 of RPA 1950 disqualifies non-citizens, unsound minds from voting. So this is what it looks like. Now, how was this exercise being undertaken? How was it being conducted? How was it being done? So booth level officers of Election Commission of India, they were conducting house to house visits, door to door. Since it is a special intensive exercise, special intensive revision, so intensive revision may door to door happens and it is hybrid. So they were taking some pre-filled forms also with them. Distributing pre-filled forms for voters. Requesting proof of eligibility, age, citizenship proof. Here it became controversial because they were not accepting Aadhaar, voter ID or ration card earlier. But after the intervention of Supreme Court, they were accepting. Collecting forms and documents from the people. After doing all these things, uploading or submitting this on the ECI net portal, Election Commission of India net portal. Political parties were also encouraged कि भाई you also send your people and see whether we are doing it right or not. They were encouraged to appoint booth level agents for assistance and objections. So if the booth level agents feel that things are not happening correctly, they can raise objections as well. Claims and objections to be reviewed by officials. And draft rolls will be live from August 1, 2025 with final publication after corrections. So draft rolls will be published. Then any problems or any corrections which have to be made in the draft rolls will be accommodated. And then after that, the final rolls will be published. Date has not been given of publishing of final rolls, but date of draft rolls, that is 1st of August, has been given. What are the petitioners saying in this? They argue the process is flawed, hurried, and violates basic rights. Flawed because it was, putting the onus of proving the identity on the people, which was not the case earlier. Hurried because the timelines are very stringent, very strict, and violates the basic rights means if you are not able to prove your identity, your voting rights will be taken away, you will be disenfranchised. So this thing is there. Violation of fundamental rights, Article 14, that is right to equality. Article 19, expression and movement from one place to the other place. Article 19 gives you this right. And if you are being disenfranchised due to movement, then your movement right will be restricted, or can be restricted. Article 21, life and liberty. It is the most interpreted or most, I would say, broad fundamental right. Arguing disproportionate impact on the poor, migrants and Dalits. Then the second point, they are saying that unreasonable documentation requirement. Requiring citizens to reapply with proof even if already registered. And initial non-acceptance of Aadhaar ration cards were there, which posed difficulty for many voters to provide the demanded ID cards. Then burden of proof shifted to citizens. That was also concerning. Voters now bear the onus of proving eligibility rather than the state identifying ineligibility. So that is also an issue. Short timeline is equal to risk of mass exclusion. So BLOs, block level officers, must cover all households before July 25, 2025. If they are not able to, then obviously they should extend their deadline. And this is monsoon season now. Will they be able to do so? And there is an existing shortage of BLOs. So what will happen? We will have to see. Now, what do the petitioners want? They want an immediate stay on SIR process, which the Supreme Court as of now has not given. But the Supreme Court can give in the July 28 hearing. That is why I am saying that. Be watchful. Extension of the timeline. This can be done and should be done actually if they are undergoing such strict timelines. And if this happens, then elections can be delayed also. More realistic documentation requirements should be there. This is already fulfilled. Aadhaar, ration cards and voter ID cards are accepted as proofs of identity now. Protection of the right to vote, especially for vulnerable groups. This is the most valuable thing which should be upheld. What I'm saying is that this exercise should be there because electoral rolls should be refined, no doubt about this fact. But they should be refined in such a way that is justiciable, that is acceptable, that is inclusive. So that voting rights of the people are not taken away. We are the world's largest democracy. And if such kind of things happen in the world's largest democracy, then it is a dark spot on our democratic ideals. So, things should be justifiable. And, if these things had to happen, Election Commission of India knew it, that since 20 years intensive revision has not happened in the country. So, they had to start, they should have started it earlier. They should have started it somewhere around March, April, so that, things could be more, I would say, balanced, under control. And whatever, things had to happen, they would have happened at an earlier date. So, this is what is my take on this. What has the ECI said in response? ECI has issued press release stating that process is proceeding smoothly and that claims of mass exclusion are rumors. They are not real. This is what Election Commission of India has to say. So, what are the key legal and constitutional questions in front of Supreme Court? Now, is the SIR process violating the Constitution? Specifically, Articles 14, 19 and 21. Is the process arbitrary and rushed, lacking sufficient time and consultation? This has to be addressed. Does it violate natural justice and due process by treating citizens as suspects? Because the onus of proving the identity is on the citizens, even if they have earlier proved it. Is the deadline practically achievable, especially during the monsoon season? So all these questions are there in front of the Supreme Court, which has to be addressed. And probably in the 28th July hearing, some of these questions will have answers. So keep watching it. Past instances of intensive revisions. What have been the past instances? 1952 to 56. Post-independence cleanup after flawed first election rolls. This happened. 1957 to 61. Pre-1962 elections. Now, earlier there were elections 1952, 57, 62. And all these were one nation, one election. Means the elections for the Parliament as well as elections for the legislative assemblies of the states used to happen simultaneously. So, pre-1962 elections covering 1/3 of the country per year was the strategy. 1965-66, after state reorganization and delimitation, many states were formed in the 1960s. Delimitation was there. Delimitation Commission, the second Delimitation Commission sat. 1983-84, 87-89, concern over foreign nationals. Because a lot of Bangladeshi or East Pakistanis had migrated into India, especially in border states, northeastern states, states like West Bengal, states like Odisha. Then 1992 to 1995, cleanup plus introduction of photo ID, the voter ID card, EPIC it is called as. And 2002 to 2004, that was the last intensive revision, last major intensive revision before current one in 2025, which has started with the state of Bihar. Now, lessons from history. What happened during earlier revisions? Early challenges, 1950s, widespread public ignorance, lack of party involvement, administrative inexperience. See, we were a very immature democracy. And being an immature democracy was basically, kind of posing a lot of challenges for us. We faced those challenges, we learnt out of those challenges, and now we have largely matured. Although there is no limit to maturity, we will further learn from here also. But at that time, 1950s, we were too young. So widespread public ignorance, lack of party involvement, administrative inexperience was there. Women were often listed vaguely. They were not listed by their name. They were listed by ex's wife Y is daughter, like this. Wife of or daughter of, like this. No central election law or clear procedures were established initially. Then safeguards started to get evolved. Election Commission of India gradually introduced due process rules, no deletion without notice, and emphasized voter inclusion and protection from arbitrary removal. So it was the onus on the Election Commission of India, and the objective, or I would say the intention of Election Commission of India, was to protect the voters' rights. Specific instructions were issued to avoid wrongful exclusion of foreign nationals. Foreign nationals should be excluded, but wrongful exclusion should be avoided. 1980s, 90s, the focus was, there were repeated complaints from northeast and border states. It led to new emphasis on citizenship verification, duplicate entry elimination, and the introduction of photo-based IT system, EPIC. Okay. So, this is there. The voter ID card was introduced in the 1980s, 90s. The shift to summary revisions. After doing all this, summary revisions were there. Summary revisions, no door-to-door survey. Roles are issued. You have to say whether your name is there or not. As data and systems improved, summary revisions became the norm due to efficiency. However, intensive revisions are still employed during high-stakes moments, such as major elections, when serious roll errors are detected or significant demographic shifts occur. So, this started to happen. But yes, doing all this is necessary, no doubt about this fact that refining the roles, electoral roles, is necessary. But the way you do it matters a lot. That is why this particular special intensive revision exercise of Election Commission of India has become controversial. The timing when you do it also is very important. That is why it has become controversial. And the main intention should be to protect the rights of the voters, to include the voters, not exclude the voters. So, Election Commission of India should be following all these ethos and go for revisions. Revisions are mandatory. And revisions are, legal also, because the Representation of People's Act is giving them the legal authority to do so. But scenarios where things are happening, they are happening in a much hurried way. They are happening in such a way that they are not constitutional as per the litigants. So let's see what the Supreme Court decides on this. The decision of the Supreme Court is really important.